New indication tonight that the HEROES Act could be law by the end of next week. Hey everybody, good evening and welcome to LALATE. This is Evenings with LALATE with bombshell, really great news that came out minutes ago about a potential deal in the second stimulus check debate. Thank you for joining us for LALATE Evenings, which involves this video and EIDL in a 1-hour programming block, and it's something that I saw nothing coming like this all week long until minutes ago when a new report out of the East Coast revealed that a deal is actually in the works, and it now coincides with what the president has been saying all week that was contradictory to what he had put on paper. What's going on? If you weren't on social media this afternoon, you would have seen what was happening. The president went on social media and said, I support $600 per week. Then he said, I support an extension of FPUC. He also had said this week, I support an extension of eviction moratorium. I want to give a stimulus check. I want to give more than a $1,200 stimulus check. I want to give all these things. And that the Democrats are not allowing me to do it. Well, apparently Republicans behind the scenes were not happy that they had a stimulus package and that the president was essentially overriding them and at the same time basically rolling over and giving the Democrats exactly what they wanted in their stimulus package. Let me explain to you what's happening because it's a little bit confusing. First, we know what the president has been saying this week, and we know how it doesn't coincide with his own stimulus package. First, the Republican stimulus package proposes a $1,200 check for adults and for non-dependents, but $500 for minor dependents. The president came out and said, I don't like that. I don't like my own bill. I want to give more than $1,200. That's what he said yesterday. He says, I want to give more than $1,200 in a second stimulus check package. First digression. Second digression. FPUC, that's $600 from the federal government. The Republican stimulus package proposes $1,200, it's a long day, $200 a week. The president, late Friday, came out and said, I don't support $200 a week. I want to give $600 a week. I want to help save jobs. I am saving more jobs than Democrats. Well, why didn't you put $600 in your bill? And why don't you pass an extension of FPUC at $600? Third, eviction moratoriums. The president on Wednesday en route to Texas said, I'm doing more for eviction moratorium than the Democrats. I have an eviction moratorium program set up to ensure that no one is displaced from their homes and give them grant money and to ensure that no one loses their home to foreclosures. Again, a digression from his own bill, which didn't even have it in there. So as we sat here throughout the week, we thought, are we just getting a little screwy here? And social media was trending all afternoon with the word liar. The word liar was trending on social media because the president said he had done certain things when he clearly had not done them when it comes to writing them. He had said things orally but had not written them down. But a new report now explains what is going on. It's basically that the president feels that he has to give what the Democrats have proposed in the HEROES Act, but he wants it to look like he always wanted it and the Democrats didn't allow him to agree to it. Yes. A new report tonight suggests that the Republicans are going to agree to ostensibly everything of the Democrats, that they're going to agree to a stimulus check of $1,200, $1,200 for non-dependents, $1,200 for dependents, $1,200 for adult dependents, and $1,200 for minor dependents. The same report claims that the Republicans are going to agree to $600 per week, an extension of FPUC effective immediately. They're not going to do the insane $200, $300 number, which they just pulled out of their you-know-what. They're not going to do the 70% calculation that's based upon something that computer systems in the states cannot process. They're not going to do this entire reversion and inversion. And they understand that the first time we did the stimulus package for FPUC, $600 was a simple number. It was grounded in economics, and it can be supported by computer systems of state unemployment offices. Finally, the Republicans are going to agree to eviction moratoriums. No one in the Republican Party thinks that Americans should be evicted during a pandemic, let alone right before a presidential election. So why do we have to go through this darn mess to get to this point? Well, it appears it wasn't necessarily an easy step. It appears that what has happened was that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, in remarks I'm going to get to in a second, basically told Mark Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff, and Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary to Donald Trump, we're not negotiating because we don't have to negotiate because no one likes your package. Don't you love that? And you'll see in the second the quote that she basically says is that people negotiate when they have to negotiate. We don't have to negotiate because what you're offering is not suitable to the American public and no one would ever agree to what you're proposing. I love it. The White House and the GOP allies appear to be retreating from their opposition to a $600 per week supplemental unemployment benefit and has propped the economy and family budgets but is expiring Friday. Retreating, says a new report out of the East Coast. President Donald Trump is eager to extend the benefits, undercutting his GOP allies on Capitol Hill, who spent considerable efforts devising an alternative that can unite Republicans. It's exactly what Chuck Schumer said, needless to say, I gotta say. Chuck Schumer said the Republicans couldn't agree upon anything. And while you can say your negatives or your positives about President Donald Trump, in this situation, he has made very clear over the last 3 weeks what he wants. The only problem is what he wanted did not appear in a bill that's actually written by congressional leaders. So he has always said he wanted certain things generally or avoided the subject altogether. But he has never said, I want to give you $500 as a stimulus check. That was Mitch McConnell. He has never said he didn't want to give you eviction moratorium. He has never said he wasn't going to give you an extension of unemployment benefits. He either didn't say it or he didn't make his position clear. And then when asked the question, he said he wanted to give you certain amounts of money. The only problem is when it became a bill, which is introduced into Congress, it didn't reflect what he wanted. Now it appears he might be getting his way. The question is whether he's getting his way to save face in the face of negotiations that did not go his way. The Republican unemployment insurance principle is a principal element, and that may or may survive it. But Mark Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff, accused the Democrats of refusing to negotiate, saying Trump has instructed him to be aggressive and forward-leaning and try to attend supplemental jobless benefits. Democrats have made 0 offers on the last 3 days, said Meadows, in a quote obtained by LALATE. An inexperienced... I'm reading the description of Mr. Meadows. This is not my description. It describes Mr. Meadows as an inexperienced negotiator and former Tea Party lawmaker. Means he doesn't know what he's doing. He said that Democrats are willing to play politics or acting like they're holding all the cards. Well, in this situation, they were, because no one was supporting $200 a week. No one was supporting $500 stimulus check. No one was supporting no eviction moratorium. No one was supporting people being thrown on their street and becoming homeless. That's not a very popular political position, Mr. Meadows, if you don't realize it. So for him to say that they were holding all the cards, no, they were holding basically what Americans want, and you were out to left field. Pelosi's response to the interview of the article that I'm citing is just indicative of what had happened. Clearly, they did not, meaning Mr. Meadows, who apparently is very inept, and I actually, to tell you the truth, I had never heard of his name until doing a few stories a few days ago. I was like, okay, who is this guy, Mark Meadows? Clearly, they did not understand the gravity of the situation, said Pelosi. She said a short-term extension only makes sense if the two sides are close to a deal. Why don't we just get the job done, Pelosi said, which is very much the case. This is not a situation in which you have a month to get this done. You have now 7 days to get it done. An aide familiar with the talks says that Pelosi rejected an administration offer. Now, what does that mean? It means exactly what I led with at the top of the hour, that Donald Trump usurped, stepped over, or ignored, whatever verb you want to use, the HEALS Act and said, I'm going to take over this. I'm done with this stupid HEALS Act. I'm going to start telling what I want to have done. And so he reached out to Pelosi via an intermediary and said, listen, we're going to have a more stimulus check. We're going to have eviction moratorium. We're going to have $600 a week FPUC. We're going to have these things. Ignore whoever wrote that stupid-ass bill. So as familiar suggested that he reached out to Pelosi with a 4-month extension initially at $400 a week, which certainly is more than $200 a week, and it's 4 months. Remember, $200 a week under the HEALS Act was 4 weeks. Trump said, no, I'll come in middle way. I'll give you $400 a week for 4 months. I mean, that would almost carry us into the next year. Combined with additional provisions for hard-hit businesses. The aide wasn't supposed to divulge the contents of the talks and said them on issue of anonymity, which I'm citing the report. Pelosi apparently conducted a tutorial on negotiations Friday, says the report. There are 2 things to remember. This is Pelosi talking. One is the person you're negotiating with has to want something for the American people. And they have to know you're willing to walk. And if you don't get a good enough agreement, you're willing to walk. Well, in this case, Pelosi said, I'm willing to walk. I'm willing to walk on the HEROES Act because this is the best deal from the American public. And if you don't even give me this, which a lot of the viewers of this channel don't even like, a lot of people, viewers of this channel, and myself included, think you should still be entitled to multiple checks. Pelosi's delivering 1 check at $1,200 for everyone, including if you're on SSDI, SSI, Social Security, and railroad benefits. But she basically said, hey, if you don't give me this, I'm just walking. And then Trump said in the White House, we want a temporary extension of enhanced unemployment benefits. This will provide a critical bridge for Americans who lost their jobs to the pandemic to no fault of their own. Yeah, that's Donald Trump talking. Can you imagine? Mitch McConnell somewhere must be choking on his Kentucky Fried Chicken because that's not how a Republican was supposed to talk 3 weeks ago. Mitch McConnell was supposed to say, we don't like unemployment benefits. It's keeping the American home. It's getting them rich off on unemployment benefits. We want them back at work. That was what Mitch McConnell's portrayal was. Tonight, the portrayal from the White House in writing is that we want to ensure that people get their enhanced benefits at full benefits. We will ensure there's a critical bridge to people who have lost their jobs. And we want to thank them for working, and it was no fault of their own. That's actually the words from the White House, compared to Mitch McConnell, who wants to say Americans are staying at home and getting rich off the system and are abusing the system. Clearly, someone woke up in the White House. Now, so what happened after that? It appears that, seeing that he wasn't really going anywhere with the situation, the president apparently, according to the report, understood that he was going to have to basically agree to the HEROES Act, but didn't want it to look like he was agreeing to a Democratic plan for purposes of party alignment, support of his Republicans. So he didn't want to look like he hadn't done anything, that he had just rolled over and agreed. So the optics, the presentation, the suggestion of the situation tonight is that the president is trying to make it look like, but not very successful, that he always wanted this, but the Democrats blocked him from doing it. And that's why the word liar is trending on Twitter. Because he wanted to say, hey, I was always going to give you eviction moratoriums. I was always going to give you a big stimulus check. I was always going to give you FPUC at $600 a week. It was just the Democrats that were the fault. They're to blame. Blame them. Don't blame me. So very, very interesting turn of events. I mean, morning's LALATE tomorrow morning. If you're not giving me 5,000 likes on this video, I just don't know what else to do. Tomorrow morning's on LALATE if the lighting is not messed up like it was off and on today. And hopefully you'll see me and I won't blend into the background. I mean, that's going to be a great broadcast. Chuck Schumer, do we want to continue to come to an agreement? Absolutely, says Chuck. Of course he does. But it's got to meet the gravity of the problem. Well, Chuck is just not showing his hands. It's more like Nancy will give you a dig when she does. Trump said Friday that Democrats are playing for November 3rd, and we're playing for the good of the people. It's a disgrace that they're not negotiating. I think it's a bad political game, and it hurts them. Let me explain to you what he's referring to, and he's actually potentially telling the truth there. He's basically saying, and I said this in response to someone's comments into the middle video, one of the videos on afternoons on LALATE. Someone asked me, what do you think is going to happen in LA? Do you think we're going to have something by nil next week? And I said to the viewer in response, I said, if we don't have a deal next week, the person who's going to be hurt the worst, and perhaps the most comprehensively hurt, is the president. Ultimately, Americans are going to blame one person and one person only for not getting a stimulus package or a stimulus check out, and it's going to be the president. Remember, this is the person who held back the first stimulus check to put his name on it. This is the person whose whose poll numbers jumped 3%, which is a lot, for sending out the first stimulus check. He gets support for giving people money. It sounds naive, but that's how it works. And if you don't give people money, especially when they really, really need it, they remember it. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. If you don't get your money, you don't like someone. It's as simple as that. And so what he apparently saw coming, and I saw it coming also, but I really didn't want to say it, is that the Democrats have a benefit of not making a deal, if you think about it. If they don't get the deal they want, then there's no package. The president goes to the fall elections, and ultimately it's the president who is to blame for not helping you. People will try to point fingers at the Democrats, but people will generally remember the president as not giving the package. They're not going to blame Joe Biden. That's the optics of the presidential race. And so hence he's saying they're to blame the Democrats for having me in this situation. Well, no, America's to blame. The whole group is to blame for not getting this done back in May. So there you go. Really exciting night. I was expected to do Q&A of some of your questions, but that took a little bit longer than expected because it's really great news. I am excited for you. Ultimately, this is based upon an AP, Associated Press, inside aide who had no ability to go on the record, of course. I mean, who's going to go on the record, listening in on negotiations during congressional meeting with the White House? I mean, you can't say that on the record. But it's a major report syndicated nationally across the country tonight. And boy, join me next for EIDL. I mean, this is getting good. And tomorrow, join me for Mornings with LLA, which is just going to be great as ever. Have a great evening. Stay safe, stay motivated, and stay positive. I always tell you stay positive and stay with LA for more.